Through this project, I will be exploring the course theme, Evolving Attitudes Towards and Constructions of What is Meant by Nature and the Western Relationship to it. I will be comparing and contrasting the Romanticism art movement with modern nature photography to explore this theme throughout time. I will be evaluating how these art forms fit in with the cultural attitudes of their time periods, how these art forms interact with the historical events occurring in their time, and how they represent our relationship to nature. I will also be exploring how both romantic paintings and nature photography use the sublime and other techniques to influence our view of nature and how we interact with it. First, I will be exploring our attitudes towards nature. This is an important theme as it helps paint a picture of the cultural attitudes present in both the Romantic era and our modern era. Specifically, I will discuss the cultural attitudes surrounding the importance of nature and the art that surrounds it. Before the emergence of the Romantic movement, there were very few artists who would do landscape paintings. Landscape paintings were thought to be of little importance in comparison to the religious paintings, portraits, etc. of the time. This hierarchy of subjects reflects the lack of interest common culture and academia had for the beauty of nature and the belief that nature didn't deserve to be represented due to its lack of morality. Landscape paintings only emerged with pastoral artists such as Claude Lorraine and Nicolas Poussin. These pastoral artists' paintings show an idealization of nature, as in Romantic art, but they differ in the fact that they have many Baroque and classical qualities, such as a focus on harmony and the use of geometric shapes. The pastoral paintings by artists such as Claude and Poussin gave morality to nature that pleased the public and led to the even further dramatized Romantic art. There was a slow transition to Romantic landscape painting, with the picturesque movement in between. The picturesque movement shows how the sublime started to become more and more represented in art throughout time. Romantic art worked against the Newtonian clockwork universe sentiment held by those in the Baroque and Enlightenment eras, as cultural attitudes shifted to focus on the intricacy and individuality of all life on Earth. The notion that the universe is controllable and understandable is completely disregarded in Romantic art, as the infinite and unknown sublime is represented. While both Romantic paintings and nature photography emphasize nature's importance through eliciting emotion in the viewer, the movement of ecological preservation is now mainly presented through the lens of a camera and not through painted art. This is due to many factors such as accessibility and the digital form in which we typically view art. Our attitude towards nature is more directly affected by photography than paintings in our modern age because photography is a reliable representation of what is happening at a certain moment in time. Both the beauty of nature and the harms it faces can be documented by most people with the simple use of a camera. Capturing an impactful photograph of nature takes skill, but it is overall more accessible than learning how to become a skilled painter and therefore more common in our modern culture. The role of nature in both Romanticism paintings and nature photography can be compared in how they depict nature solely for its beauty and not as a backdrop for a more important subject. The common l'art pour l'art saying can be applied to both Romanticism and modern photography when considering how both movements embody a sort of nature for nature's sake of motivation. Both Romantic artists and nature photographers strive to demonstrate nature's beauty as the main focus of their work. Both Romantic paintings and nature photography serve to appreciate nature for its existence and not for the resources it contains. The appreciation of nature for its intrinsic value and not solely for its resources can be seen in the beginning of the Romantic era and how the threat of industrialization led to an increased appreciation of nature amongst mainly the middle class. This can still be seen in our modern society as we travel to view these landscapes in real life and as we advocate for their protection. While the Romantic movement focused largely on beauty to advocate for the importance of nature, we now understand the real impacts of harming our environment. There is now a greater understanding of why nature is important due to scientific developments that have occurred. It is also more of a widespread opinion that nature should be appreciated for its intrinsic value along with what it provides. Next, I will compare and contrast the Romantic era and the resurgence of Romanticism during the Victorian era with our modern era. This will provide more context as to why and how Romantic landscape paintings and nature photography have been received the way they have been by their respective cultures. The early modern period, also called the Victorian era, was a period that saw extreme contrasts between royalty and the working class. Romantic art, which embodied themes of nature, sensuality, and beauty, was used within countercultural movements to rebel against the traditionalist conservative ideals of the Victorian era. The rise in industrialization and pollution that accompanied the Victorian era was combated partly by Romantic art in order to emphasize the beauty within nature. Those benefiting from industrialization and capitalization of the Victorian era feared the impacts radical Romanticism could have on their ecologically harmful operations. The emotionalism and individualism that accompanied Romanticism was thought to be a cause of uprisings within labor forces and lower socioeconomic classes in the name of causes such as environmental protection. Photography can highlight environmental issues currently happening in a quick and effective manner that inspires change. Both digital photography and information on the environment can become widespread faster than ever before. Nature photography can also inspire positive change through how the beauty and vastness of nature is captured. For this project, I have focused on National Geographic and the landscape photography that they publish, as the National Geographic organization is widely known and a great example of how landscape photography can be used for change. The National Geographic organization publishes extensive information on the challenges our world faces, all while incorporating art to provide a deeper understanding and emotional effect. Both Romantic paintings and nature photography respond to industrialization and its harmful effects on the environment in a way that aims to highlight the importance of nature. The same response to the harmful effects of industrialization that Romantic art had can be seen in how nature photography responds in the form of both depicting nature's beauty and its downfall. Photos of the effects of pollution and climate change have an impact similar to the beautiful landscape photos and paintings we enjoy in the way that both emphasize nature's sanctity. The use of these paintings and photographs to respond to industrialization throughout history ties in closely with the use of the sublime and the emotional effects that these art pieces elicit. The sense of grandeur and astonishment that comes with an amazing landscape photograph leaves a lasting impression with the viewer, who can now appreciate nature outside of materialistic gain. Nature photography can be considered drastically different from Romantic-era paintings due to the accessibility and popularity of nature photography. With social media and many other available sharing platforms, photography is extremely popular in our society and digital lives. Widespread digital photography makes it extremely easy to raise awareness for the many issues that our climate faces. This differs from the Romantic era because our digital access to photography and other art is only recent, and paintings had to be viewed in person for most of history. Due to our only recent technological advances, Romanticism paintings are only now widely circulated and discussed. As mentioned before, landscapes and nature scenes were not always thought of as a main subject in art either. In our modern society, it is common to depict landscapes in art, when throughout history it was not common or accepted. For my final section, I will be exploring how both Romantic landscape paintings and modern nature photography use techniques and methods that influence our relationship with nature on a personal level. Art has an amazing ability to elicit emotion within the viewer and to therefore influence opinion. Both Romantic paintings and nature photography have the ability to shift cultural opinions regardless of how different their mediums and techniques are. In the transition from Baroque and neoclassical pastoral landscape paintings to Romantic landscape paintings, there were many changes made as greater focus was placed on the emotion of the viewer. In early pastoral paintings, there is a lot of stable geometric shapes and simple perspectives that evoke little emotion in the viewer. But as art moves into the Romantic period, we can see how the motivations of the artist change, and different techniques are utilized to now place an emphasis on emotion and feeling. Romantic art uses dynamism, irrational space, vivid color, and many other expressive techniques to focus on themes such as worldly beauty and nature. The emergence of the sublime can be seen in the picturesque style and how, as art continued on to the Romantic period, scenes became more tumultuous and imperfect. These scenes, showing the dynamism and vastness of nature, create the feeling of the sublime within the viewer. The sublime within Romantic paintings emphasizes our insignificance and how minuscule we are in the face of the vastness of nature. Although we typically think of the sublime as something an artist creates within a painting, the sublime can be found all around us as well. Nature photography often gives the same awe-inspiring impression as these paintings. Photographers use special equipment and editing tools to further enhance this appearance of the sublime. When a viewer experiences the feeling of the sublime through an amazing photograph, they can come to appreciate nature in a way that goes beyond just protecting that particular environment. No matter what the viewer's beliefs are, there is often an undeniable sense of divinity and wonder within the sublime that urges the viewer to ponder their own existence and role within nature. Romantic paintings and nature photography both capture the sublime through their separate mediums. Art had to evolve and grow into the Romantic movement in order to create paintings that could hold morality and depict the sublime. The same methods, such as dynamism and perspective, that give art an emotional and moral quality can be found within photography as well. These different mediums achieve this moral quality differently, but both often aim to create a sense of the sublime within the viewer. Both photography and Romantic paintings use elements such as vast space and the obscuring of vision in order to give nature a grandeur quality that highlights its seemingly infinite and sublime features. The art of photography is drastically different from painting in numerous ways, the most prominent being that photography, for the most part, is a direct capture of reality. Methods are used to manipulate photos and alter their appearance, but the immediate replication of the photographer's reality in a photograph is significantly different from the reality that a painter can create through their own manipulation. One technique that can be seen in both Romanticism and nature photography, while still containing many differences, is the creation of the sublime. The main difference is in how artists can create the sublime through the Romantic paintings, while photographers must seek out the sublime in the world around them. Although both painting and photography can capture the sublime, photography is different in how photographers must utilize the world in front of them. Photographers do not have the same ability as painters to create the reality they hope to show on a canvas. I would argue that this makes photography significantly more impactful than a beautiful Romantic landscape painting. Photography as an art form can have a greater impact when the viewer cannot believe that what they are seeing is, in fact, our reality. The sublime within nature photography can have the same emotional effect as the sublime within a Romantic painting, while instilling a deep respect for our natural reality within the viewer. In conclusion, advocating for nature's beauty and protection is something that I am very passionate about. As an environmental science major, I find it extremely important that we protect nature for its intrinsic value, not just for its resources. Looking back at how nature has been valued throughout history and through art can provide us with an understanding of how cultural attitudes have real effects on our environment and our world. Art portrays these cultural attitudes and values while also influencing them through the emotional influence a great artist can have on their viewers.